Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. It is the football review show and the hurling review show. We're going to be looking back at the weekend's championship action. We are doing this on a Tuesday. I was in lovely old Edinburgh for the weekend, so we couldn't do this yesterday. I probably could have done it yesterday, but a little bit hungover. Also flew back a little bit late as well. So, and to be honest, I hadn't seen any of the games up until today. I will be perfectly honest. So, but yeah, here with Matthew Hurley to review all three of the games and some big talking points. But as we were saying off air, Matthew, in terms of all the results and all the games, probably went the way a lot of us would have expected. Maybe Mayo Galway was a little bit closer than some people had anticipated. Maybe Mayo will look back at that game with big regrets. Kerry put Clare to the side, and that game was probably over at half time, or maybe even after about 20 minutes, if we're being honest. And whilst Waterford did have a couple of moments against Limerick, like Limerick were fairly comfortable, I felt, in that game as well. So all in all, I suppose a bit more of a predictable weekend, maybe, but after recent weekends, we can't really complain.
Exactly, and thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, I suppose this weekend was a weekend where we got all the predictions right, really. The Kerry-Clare game probably was more of a discussion, say, and we go back to the same thing over and over again. Could the Munster Council have done the draw a lot better? Could they have had Cork and Kerry in the final? Because every time Clare go to the final, they kind of just roll over. They have a great chance of getting points on the board in the All-Ireland group, but if they don't get them this year, Aaron, I think, like Clare being a Division 3 team, you'd be thinking, what is the point in having Clare in the All-Ireland series? They're just going to roll over every time, but we'll have to see how they get on. As for Kerry, they looked absolutely outstanding. The Mayo-Galway game was a weird one. You would have expected Galway to win the game, but a kind of a weird stat for the viewers, actually. I think before the game, out of the last 6 meetings between Mayo and Galway only won 2 of those, and both of those were by a point. And they only won this game by, I think it was 2 points in the end. So when Galway do beat Mayo, it is very, very tight to call. Whenever Mayo beat Galway, coincidentally, Mayo actually put asunder on them most of the time. Like I remember the 2021 game in Croke Park, they absolutely battered them. 2019 with James Carr scoring 2 goals. That was quite comfortable. But whenever Galway kind of win the games, they do it in kind of a tight kind of margin. But they got over the line. Jamie Comer and Shane Walsh weren't there. But then again, there was the controversy with the Ryan O'Donoghue 2-pointer. I thought it was, but I'm sure we'll get into it in just a bit. And then the Limerick and Waterford game, you're absolutely right. Like, Waterford had their moments in the game. They looked decent enough, and I don't think Waterford did much wrong. But I think Limerick announced themselves as genuine All-Ireland, like they weren't already, but genuine All-Ireland contenders on Saturday. People have been talking about Cork and hyping them up, probably rightly so, considering Cork's form. But Limerick look absolutely outstanding on Saturday. Shane O'Brien's in brilliant form. Cian Lynch, Goward Hagerty didn't have his best game, but he still produced a moment of magic with that score in the second half. Adam English in midfield seems to be looking good. Obviously, we'll get into it more as we go on in the episode. But yeah, some interesting enough games with interesting kind of angles, but very few kind of talking points to discuss, which is very, very disappointing in its own way because we have not much to talk about there. But like, looking forward to getting into it nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree with you as well. It did feel like the weekend where Limerick probably announced themselves or maybe told everyone that they're definitely not going away. But yeah, look, we'll start with the Mayo versus Galway game. Mayo won 15, Galway won 17. Mayo certainly had some bright sparks, obviously, in the game. They probably did start the better with that goal from Darren McHale. Galway obviously keeping themselves in it with a number of different 2-pointers. Paul Conroy having the game of his life once again, proving the footballer of the year form. And yeah, Galway in the end come through it. And look, Mayo, like, looking at Mayo first of all, though, like I think they'll be happy in parts with their performance. Look, they were poor in many regards against both Leitrim and Sligo, but they absolutely gave it their all in this game. And look, maybe just 1 or 2 more quality players away from potentially winning the game. But maybe looking at Mayo first of all, like, I mean, I do feel like they left it behind them though a little bit. Like, they had the chances to win the game, and obviously you had a bit of the controversy over the 2-pointer as well from O'Donoghue, but I feel like they had their chances to win this.
Certainly did. Like, you look at the stats towards the end, was like 26 shots for Mayo, 14 converted, 43% conversion rate from play. That is 7 converted out of 16. when you look at Galway, 58%, but that's much better than Mayo, 65% overall. And even when you look at the kickouts, Mayo actually had a under 50% retention rate. And it probably summed up Colm Reeve's day for the Rory Brick and the black card. That was poor kickouts, and Mayo's kickouts were poor all day, to be honest with you. Galway were cleaning them up at the end of the first half. And it was like Mayo didn't have an out ball at that particular moment. But when they kind of had the lease of life in them in the second half, they didn't grab the game by the scruff of the neck. Yes, granted, I would agree, if O'Donoghue's 2-pointer stood, which it should have been 2 points, not 1 point, Mayo would have gone ahead at that point. And you never know. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball here. But you never know. If Mayo go ahead in the second half with a few minutes to go, you never know what can happen. So you have to take that into consideration as well. But from a Galway point of view, to win this game without Shane Walsh, without Damien Comer, the team, Rob Finnerty seems to going well. Matthew Tierney probably didn't have his best game in a Galway jersey, I'll be honest with you. But there's still other players stepping up. Matthew Thompson in the first half, nearly everything went through him. Paul Conroy, we speak about him year on year, Aaron. He's 35, nearly 36 years of age. How on earth does he keep lording it around the middle of the park? He is just a specimen. He's unreal. 7 points in this one, 3 2-pointers. And that kind of, when Galway were under the caution the first half, he was the guy to keep them in it. And definitely deserves a lot of plaudits. But Mayo scored 1-2 in the first few minutes. Darren McHale obviously getting that goal, a well-taken goal, Mayo had as well. But then Galway started to take over. I think they went 1-10 to 1-2 ahead, and they were with the wind in the half. And we're thinking, how are Mayo going to come back into this game? And I will not lie, at halftime, when Mayo were a lot behind Galway, I was kind of thinking, going into the game, Mayo and Clare were the only two teams that hadn't got a 2-pointer in the championship. So I was thinking, well, obviously Clare got 2 in the game against Kerry, which we'll discuss in a bit, but Mayo didn't get a 2-pointer in 2 games against Leitrim and Sligo. And I was questioning where the 2-pointers going to come from. Fair play to Ryan O'Donoghue, got one straight away in the second half. And then Matthew Ryan got one as well, and Ryan O'Donoghue should have got one later on in the half as well. So Mayo did prove me wrong in that kind of facet of play. But just kind of keeping their composure in front of the goal and keeping their composure in other facets as well was kind of worrying. 2 moments in particular. Number one, the Rory Brick and the black card. Like at that late stage of the game, Colm Reeve, like you're level in the game, you're neck and neck with Galway, you kick the ball long. You do not kick it short, especially under the new rules. Galway are going to push up, and that's what happened. Rob Finnerty pushed up in the kick out. Rory Brick and fouls him. Correct black card, and Rob Finnerty gives Galway the lead afterwards from a free. But Mayo could have won it with a goal chance at the end. And Hessian, I think Colin Barkerson did say this on Twitter, which is a tad harsh, I will say, saying that what our coach is actually saying to players, like why aren't they drilling it low? I actually don't think it was Parkinson. I think it was Cormac O'Malley, a Mayo guy, actually said this on Twitter. It was one of them anyway. Saying that Enda Hessian needed to, put it on the ground. Don't put it in, like they try to put it in the top corner, because that's kind of an easy shot to save for the goalkeeper. But you have to think, at that present moment, it was 65, 66 minutes on the clock. Like, he could have panicked, Enda Hessian. Like, he's a cornerback. I don't know what he was doing there in the first place, but the chance Belton didn't take it in the end, and it was a big opportunity for Mayo. Colm Reeve then kicks the 45, and then Liam O'Canena gets the insurance score for Galway. And even in the last kick from Matthew Ryan to try and attempt a 2-pointer, I think they panicked. They did, granted, they did get 2 2-pointers in the second half. But overall, they kind of panicked in their shots, Mayo, and that's what probably lost them the game overall. But I will repeat, Aaron, like, that was a crucial moment of the game with the Ryan O'Donoghue 2-pointer or not. If that's a 2-pointer, if it's given correctly as a 2-pointer, Mayo would have gone in front. And we don't know what would have happened then. Mayo could have kicked on. We never know.
Yeah. And it does seem like a bit of a loophole as well, like with the keeper kind of touching on its way. Maybe it is something they should look at. What did you think of the Galway penalty? Like, I thought that was, I mean, there is a pullback, but I don't know what you thought, but I thought it was a little bit harsh in some regards.
Honestly, I think it was a penalty. This is where I won't defend me. Look, Johnny McGregor dragged back when he was taking a shot on. It was kind of a weak attempt as well. I know Johnny McGrath's a cornerback, but he probably would have kicked it with it more of a forceful demeanour if he didn't get dragged back. And honestly, Aaron, I think it was a penalty. I don't know what Mayo fans were complaining about the decision for. It looked clear and obvious. He got dragged back. It's a penalty for me.
Yeah, like just from my side, in my opinion, I thought it was a little bit soft. Look, at the same time, yeah, there is a pullback there, but we'll be curious to know obviously what people think in regards to that as well. But as you said with Galway, like to be missing Shane Walsh, Damien Comer, missing two key players, and I think one criticism that's often gone Galway's way over the last couple of years is that when they're not there, Galway don't produce their best football, and look, maybe there is an argument that they could have played a little bit better on Sunday, but at the same time, they're still beating a good team, in my opinion. Maybe Mayo aren't as good as previous years, but they're still a top team, and they still won a provincial title without two of their key players, when I think Mayo actually did play quite well as well. So, like, that should give Galway a lot of encouragement that they are able to come through these games without those two players, because even going back to the All-Ireland final last year against Armagh, like, I know Shane Walsh was playing, but you know, he wasn't at it. He wasn't right. And I think at the end of the day, if he's not right, then don't play him. Do you know what I mean? Because you're taking away potentially another player who could be able to step up. So that absolutely has to be a positive for Galway.
It does, yeah. And it was kind of a case with the Shane Walsh thing last year. It kind of reminded me of a saying, like, what's the definition of insanity? You know, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And Shane Walsh, as you rightly said, he clearly wasn't fit against Armagh last year. He wasn't kicking from long range. I don't know why Galway put him on free. I think it was within the last 10 minutes against Armagh to level the game at that critical juncture. But this year, you have other players stepping up, like obviously Walsh and Comer weren't there. And important to mention, John Maher wasn't there in the second half. He went off injured, and hopefully he does recover soon. But like for Galway to be missing them three players, like John Maher was nominated for he was an all-star last season. Shane Walsh is probably one of the best two-pointed kickers in the country at this present moment of time, and Damien Comer's probably been the most influential forward in the Galway team over the last few years. But you had lads stepping up. Rob Finnerty, as I thought he would, like without Walsh and without Comer, there was a lot of pressure on him. Stepped up 4 points, 3 from frees. Paul Conroy, absolutely superb. Matthew Tierney, again, not his best performance in the Galway jersey, still kicked 1-1, which was actually decent enough for a player that was off colour. Killy McDade, the run he made in the second half, that was a crucial moment and decided the game in many ways. And he is a crucial player for Galway, no doubt about it. Matthew Thompson as well, absolutely brilliant in this game. A great young player. He was under 20 last year for Galway, so for him to kind of step up as soon as he has, that's all credit to him. Sean Kelly had a decent performance as well. Liam O'Connell coming off the bench and kicking the insurance score was a good score to get as well. Dylan McHugh, Liam Silk from wingback were brilliant as well from a Galway point of view. Cian Darcy around the middle of the park, absolutely superb. Like he was really running asunder on the Mayo kickouts in the first half when Galway needed to gain an upper hand on Mayo when they had the wind with them. Cian Darcy was the man to kind of start their attacks by claiming some high fielding catches. McDade, as I mentioned there, Sean McCurr, decent enough performance from him as well. Jack Lynn, some nice interceptions as well. Johnny McGrath, as always, absolutely. Although Brian O'Donoghue scored 9 points in the day, but like O'Donoghue's still a very good player. You have to give him credit for that. Johnny McGrath, brilliant performance from him. Conor Gleeson, I think this guy in particular, from a Galway point of view, he's come under a lot of criticism, both from shot stopping and kickouts. From kickouts, won over 50% of his kickouts. I think it was 63% overall in the new rules. When the ball has to go long, that's a brilliant thing to have. And Conor Gleeson will take a confidence from that. And the save, I know in the Hessian, in hindsight's a beautiful thing. He probably should have put it down low at the bottom corner, but Conor Gleeson still had to make the save, and it was a crucial save in the game to decide where the Connacht title was going. So you have subs there from a Galway point of view that can come on and make a difference as well, which is another positive thing for Barbara Joyce. Like Kieran Malloy came on, Cian Hernan, Peter Cook obviously coming on. Like imagine the team having him to come onto the pitch. Colin Sweeney came on at half time and did decent enough in John Maher's absence. So look, Galway, they have the players now, they have the panel. I think Paul Flynn mentioned it during the league, or some other Sunday game analyst mentioned it during the league, that what Galway do have now is a panel, and they are to be feared for the rest of the country going forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, and that is the thing. I mean, it does feel like they're getting stronger. The new rules, obviously, I think suits them down to the ground as well. Like, there's so many players that can kick 2-pointers. In fairness, and as you said, with Walsh and Comer to come back in, it's looking good for Galway. I still think they have another level to go up on, another gear to go up on as well, which I think would definitely give their fans a lot of confidence. Looking at it from a Mayo perspective, though, and maybe taking it back from a Mayo perspective, I mean, they have had a lot of criticism at times this year. Obviously not kicking 2-pointers and everything else, which they didn't do until the second half of this game, in the entire championship so far. They haven't really kicked much 2-pointers throughout the league. They've been criticised for playing probably still the same Mayo way as they have done really for the last sort of 10, 15 years, predominantly running game, chaos and everything else. It probably is a little bit slower now, as I've often said, than even it was under James Horan. But have Mayo proved themselves a little bit more that maybe they, like, where does this put them then? Like, how far do you think they can go in the championship, having watched a performance like this and having seen what they can produce? Because Ryan O'Donoghue was outstanding, but is it just outside from him? Maybe they're just lacking one or two more kind of killer forwards that, say, a Galway, an Armagh, or even a Tyrone have.
Maybe so, but you have to give Kevin McStay a bit of credit, to be fair to him. Like, in the last 9 games, Mayo have only lost 2 games, and that was against Kerry in the league final, when there was an argument, did you actually care about that game? And this game against Galway, where, as Paddy O'Shea always alludes to, the grain of rice tips the scale, and that was the case in this game. Like, you look at the last few, like, they lost their first 2 games of the league to Dublin and got hammered out the gate by Galway and Castlebar. And a lot of people were saying, including us too, where this Mayo team going? Are there going to be leaders in this Mayo team? Are they going to go down to Division 2? Is this going to be a rotten year for Mayo? But they've proved the doubters wrong. Like, since match day 3 in the league, they've beaten Tyrone, they've drawn against Armagh in the athletic grounds against the All-Ireland champions Mayo as well. They've beaten Donegal. Yes, there could be an argument Donegal probably didn't care about getting to the league final, but they still beat them to get to the league final initially. Like, you have to give Mayo some decent credit. I know against Leitrim and Sligo, a lot of people point towards those games, but like, there is an argument to say as well that Leitrim and Sligo were up for those games, and Mayo probably were playing kind of maybe a 3rd gear or maybe even 4th gear, and maybe that was just enough to push them over the line. And Mayo will prove to be better later on down. So, but I think what Mayo need to prove now is they need to beat kind of teams that you consider to be that Mayo would be better than. Starting off with Cavan and Castlebar. Cavan will be a difficult assignment for them, no doubt about it. But if Mayo are to push on, they need to be beating sides like Cavan. But even when you look at this game against Galway, they had more shots than them. They had less frees conceded. They had more turnovers. Like, the stats there, I know they had a 43% shot accuracy for play, but when you look at the full numbers in terms of stats there, more shots, more turnovers, they match Galway more than anything. So it's just, it's a matter of believing in themselves as well. Darren McKay is having a brilliant season. Ryan O'Donoghue, I think he is the top scorer in the championship so far. I think he's doing well for play as well. Darren McCain's got 1-7 for play, which is a pretty good tally from him. David Neary's been a brilliant find for Mayo this season. Matthew Ron has proved, particularly in this game, that he's well able to kick outside the arc. You've other players. Jordan Flynn has really proved himself as well since coming back for throwback exploits. You have players like Paul Towie, who has done very well off the bench when introduced. So Mayo do have the players. It's just about the temperament and how they, I suppose, how they'll acquit themselves in the All-Ireland series later on down the year. Like, it is going to be interesting to see how Mayo get on. They're now in the group with Cavan, the Ulster, I think it's the Ulster winners, and I forget off the top of my head, it was the Tyrone, is the other team. So it'd be interesting to see how they get on in that kind of group. They've Cavan at home, they've Tyrone away and home. That should be a tough game, obviously. And then they've the Ulster champions in a neutral venue. So there's a lot of pressure riding on that Cavan game to win that game, because you look at the other 2 games, it's going to be tough for them. So I think Kevin McStay, all he might be thinking towards now is Cavan in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah. Liam says here, other than Rowan and O'Donoghue, they don't have 2-point kickers. We've said that all season. Mikey says, with the way the groups turn out, it's hard to see Galway and Mayo having a path to an All-Ireland final. Eamon says Mayo are limited quarters at best. And Mikey says Mayo need Durkin and Conroy back. Tommy Conroy was such a explosive player in that Mayo team, and it's such a shame that injury that he had. And hopefully, like, at some point, he can get back to those same levels. But yeah, big result for Galway, and commiserations for any Mayo supporters. You had Kerry 420, Clare 21 points. We're kind of saying, look, maybe after the shock of Meath beating Dublin and some other kind of closer games in the championship, like Armagh Antrim being a little bit closer than we thought, and maybe down to Donegal being a little bit closer than we thought. You were kind of thinking, could Clare do something here? But it was abundantly clear, probably after 5 minutes when Clifford got both of them goals, that Clare, unfortunately, are going to do well to make a game out of this. And like Kerry, to be fair, scored 4 goals in 25 minutes. They were absolutely cruising. And it did feel like Kerry just took their foot off the gas. I mean, credit to Clare. Look, they kicked a couple of brilliant 2-pointers in the second half and had some brilliant scores and everything else. But it was as clear as day, the gap in quality between these two. And it will be, in my opinion anyway, the most one-sided provincial final this year.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. And there's a question mark, Aaron. Should this be the Munster final pairing in the next years? I mean, it's sour grapes and all that, but I'm not just saying that from a Cork point of view. I'm saying it from an Offaly point of view and a Munster Council point of view as well. The Munster Council, first of all, because you need to grow a product. You need to have a better provincial final. And unfortunately, for the rest of the Munster counties, Cork and Kerry are the clear best teams in Munster at this present moment in time. That is a fact. You have to have those two sides of the provincial final. How do you do it next year? Have Cork and Kerry at separate sides of the draw. I'd be all for having Cork and Clare on one side of the draw and let them battle it out. May the best team win. And let Kerry on the other side of the draw. That's probably the best way to do it. You can't keep having Clare and Kerry on separate sides of the draw because Clare pulled off one result in 2023 against Cork. It's wrong. And I think it's wrong. So not just for Cork or the Munster Council. It's wrong for the Division 3 champions, which proved to be Offaly this year, because they missed out in the Sam Maguire place because of this. And ultimately, Aaron, it's wrong. It's simply because you look at the last 3, I'll give them a few statistics there. The last 3 championship meetings of Cork and Kerry and the last 3 championship meetings of Kerry and Clare. The average winning margin for Kerry in their games against Cork in the last 3 games, if you count normal time, is it's a combination of 5 points in 3 games. That's close to 2 points. That's really nothing. Again, a grain of rice. For Clare and Kerry over the last 3 seasons, there's been margins like 14 points, this margin 11 points, and there's been 7 points. The 7 points was Ennis as well. That's an average of 11 points. You don't need to be a genius to look at those statistics and think. You need a different kind of provincial final to grow your product. It's as simple as that. I just think something needs to be done quickly in terms of that, not just for Cork or Munster, for Offaly as well, or whoever wins the Division 3 crown, because it's wrong to have this every single season because of one result that happened a couple of years ago. Look, that's the rant over. In terms of the game itself, look, I think in the semi-final, like a lot of people were saying that Kerry, they were let off the gas and they were very, very poor against Cork and things like that. I think they proved in this game what a good side they can be, especially up front. When they're on it in the first half, they weren't on in the second half because they didn't need to be. They brought on the likes of Killian Spillane and Keith Evans. Keith Evans was great to see him make a championship appearance in this game as well, because he is a very good player on under 20 level. But you could see Kerry were just running the bench in the second half. In the first half, when they're on their pomp, they're lethal up front. David Clifford 2-5 in this game. I think when you look at the top scores for play in the championship so far, David Clifford's score for play in 2 games is 2-12. The next best, a plethora of players on 1-9. Darrell Wheels in that. I think Kieran Murtagh's in that from Roscommon as well. Conor Callan from Dublin. But that's a gap of 6 points. And David Clifford's played 2 games. I know that's like, you wouldn't be surprised at those statistics, but it just proves even more. He's a freak of nature, especially under these new rules. And it's a case you don't know how to stop this guy in excelling in each and every game. You can put the best man markers on him, and he still provides some brilliant statistics, and he's absolutely exceptional. Like he came back in the Tyrone game of the league. I think it was around match day 4 of the league. You look at his stats since he scored 544 since that Tyrone game, since he came back into the Kerry team 2025. 526 from play. That's in 6 games. That's an average of 9.83 points a game, an average of 6.83 from play. But that's monstrous. That is absolutely exceptional. You look at his shot conversion rate combined in the Cork and Clare game, took 16 shots across 2 games, 14 converted, 88%. Like honestly, Aaron, I don't know how you stop this guy. Even Paulie wasn't there, and he was still excelling. Like this guy, he's a freak of nature. Sean O'Shea, you have to give him a lot of credit as well. 8 points in this one. Very good display from him. Meall Burns looks like a man possessed in the half-forward line and wants to keep his starting spot in the Kerry team. Barry Dan O'Sullivan has really done well in midfield in the absence of Dermot O'Connor. Joe O'Connor has as well. There's a question mark now. How does Dermot get back into the team? Because the 2 lads are performing brilliant at the moment. Obviously, tougher tests will come in the group stage. You'd be hoping against Cork again and Páirc Uí Chaoimh, against Roscommon and Killarney. And I think they're playing the losers in the Leinster final in the neutral venue. So hopefully Kerry will get a tough test in the group stage. Not sure will they, but that remains to be seen, obviously. But they looked head and shoulders above Clare in this one. Not much to talk about really in this game, other than Kerry's brilliance. The fact that they are genuine All-Ireland contenders and are a serious team to watch. And David Clifford is just a freak of nature.
Yeah, Mikey says here, no disrespect to Clare, but they're a Tailteann Cup team. And Kevin says Offaly or Kildare would have made a better game, and yet they're in the Tailteann. I mean, look, if it had happened when it happened the first time, you were thinking, look, it's great for Clare to get their Munster final and everything else. Then when it happens 2-3 times, and I know last year in Ennis they made the game a little bit closer maybe than we would have anticipated. But even at that, Kerry were still relatively comfortable in winning that game. You would say they never really looked like ever losing the game. Like, what is it do you think they need to do then in that aspect? Do you think they need to strip teams who get the provincial finals and just be like provincial winners, right? Fair enough, they can be seeded in the group stage, then just base it all on group pairings? Do they need to see the provincial championships a bit more? Do they need to change the draws around, or what do you think maybe to try and make this a little bit more fair?
Either that, either don't have a provincial finalist in this, but as you said on my podcast previously, or just do the draws better. Like it's not rocket science. Have Cork and Kerry on a separate side of the draw in Munster. Leinster have it seeded as well. Have, let's say, Dublin now on one side, just randomly Meath and Kildare on the other. That's your draw. In Connacht, Roscommon, Galway, Mayo, just avoid putting them on the same side of the draw. And Ulster obviously sells itself. But just do the draws better. It's as simple as that. Do you think that's the genuine solution? Do you stick by those beliefs, Aaron? Do you think they need to do the draws better? Or what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, no, I think absolutely they do. Like, I know I've said it for years that I know, like, maybe with what's happened in Leinster, it's kind of mixed it up a little bit. But even at that, Meath are probably a high level Division 2 side. Dublin are mid-table Division 1. So maybe in terms of placings, there's actually not much between them now. But I do think there is an argument maybe that you should have just Division 1 and 2 teams in each provincial championship. I know maybe some would say, oh, you're taking away the fairy tale, you're taking away the shock value, you're taking away what Tipperary maybe did in 2020 or maybe Cavan as well. But they are the anomaly. They're very, very few and far between. I don't know. I think they should probably at least see the sides of the draw maybe as well, where you're keeping the stronger place teams kind of away from each other until a potential final. I think the reason why maybe they don't do that is because they're afraid of ending up with the same final every year, which is ironic because here we are with Kerry versus Clare every year. I think it definitely is something they need to look at. Look, maybe they just need to do it with some provincial championships. Like, I think Ulster you could just probably leave Ulster the way it is. Maybe there's an argument now to leave Leinster the way it is, but maybe with Connacht and Munster, especially when you look at the gap really between, I know Leitrim and Sligo gave Mayo a good go, But the gap between Mayo, Galway, and the Roscommon, look, Sligo maybe are bridging it a little bit, but there is still a big gap there. And I don't see, the point in having those games even as well,
Yeah, and you look at like somebody tweeted this as well. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was. He put out Fermanagh have to beat Down and either Donegal, Monaghan, or Derry to reach the All-Ireland Championship. Clare only have to beat Tip.
Yeah,
and that's kind of that's wrong as well. Simple as at least if Clare were to beat Cork or Kerry in a quarter or semi-final, they would have earned it. They would have earned their place in the Sam Gore. In this current structure, they aren't, because last year they played Waterford, this year they played Tip. And Tip might improve in the next few years, and they are slowly but surely making their way on the way back. But the reality is, Aaron, they're a Division 4 team, and a lower level Division 4 team at that present moment as well. They're 5th or 6th place in Division 4. And you look at, even in the Division 3 game in Ennis, between Clare and Offaly, I know Offaly kind of slacked off in the second half, but in that game it was clear in the first half when Offaly were attacking Clare, wave after wave after wave, Offaly were the clear better team than Clare, and they kind of slacked off in the second half to save themselves a bit for the Division 3 final. But you could see from the trajectory Offaly have been on to Clare's, Offaly are a better team than them. And what's their reward for doing well in Division 3? Getting the Tailteann Cup. And I will add, Offaly could win the Tailteann Cup and they could have a decent year. But there is an argument to say as well, and Clare fans might be angry with this, but this is the reality. Wouldn't Clare be much better off in the Tailteann Cup, a competition that they could win, with the players that they do have? They could win that competition. Or do you want to go into another Sam Maguire campaign where you're going to get 0 onto the board and out?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like it's not it's definitely not personal towards Clare, and I wouldn't want any Clare fans who are watching this to think that it is. It absolutely isn't. It's more just got to do with the structure. Do you know what I mean? I think, look, if we lived in a world where, Offaly had to be, I don't know, like if Offaly had to be Carlow kind of on route to a Leinster final or something like that, do you know what I mean? Or you had a scenario maybe where it was like Waterford had to beat Leitrim, or, you know what I mean? Like just kind of scenarios like that. That's kind of developing, and it probably is just one of them things where it's happened to Clare 3 years in a row. When it happened once, you were like, great for Clare, all the rest, and when it happens twice and then 3 times, it kind of just is getting a bit of a joke. And as you said, it is taken away from the great work the likes of Offaly and Kildare did this season, especially Offaly, obviously having been the next team who would have been there, having won the Division 3 title. Rudder says here, looking forward to the Ulster final, a draw possible, extra time and penalties. Yeah, absolutely, my man. And we will be back tomorrow evening to discuss that game in more detail. Liam says, will this win even benefit Kerry, though? That's my only worry. I mean, like, what I would say is Kerry did get their test in Cork. They got the fright of their life. And look, they cruised through the first half. So, didn't need to really do much in the second half. We've saw this with Kerry in the past, and with their group, it's not maybe as easier as other groups, but you'd still expect them most certainly to come through it. So what would be your opinion on that?
Look, the thing is, first of all, I do like Liam's profile pic on YouTube. His new profile pic. Up the boys from Offaly there, but yeah, from a Kerry point of view,
do that again. Faithful podcast, absolutely. Make sure to check it out as well, lads. Make sure to check it out. Give you an L plug there.
Exactly. Yeah, I was the first to notice it, Aaron. So
silly me. I mean, I also have Inter and Barcelona in the background here as well, so trying to multitask.
Back to the Gaelic games, back to the real sport. From a Kerry point of view, look, I do agree that they got to fight their lives against Cork, and they did have to pull something out of the bag there. And I genuinely think, I was in the media area when Jack O'Connor was doing his interviews, obviously after the game, and I think genuinely he was absolutely delighted, first of all, to get over the line that night, and second of all, to get the test, because I don't know. Like, would Jack have expected a test later on in the season whatsoever? So I think he was delighted that night that Cork really, really showed up. Really showed up. And I think Kerry did get the test. And who's to say that Cork can't test them again in the group stage? It's in Páirc Uí Chaoimh again. Who's to say they can't? Hopefully Roscommon can in Killarney. I'm not sure will they though. Like Roscommon are a weird team, aren't they? Like one day they look scintillating, and then on another day they could get hammered. So you don't honestly know with Roscommon really. No, I think Kerry will be fine. I think they'll be fine. They have some brilliant players up front. I would worry a bit about their defence. Like if you run at this Kerry defence, obviously you can cause problems, and that has probably been the saying over the last few seasons. But I think when you look at their attacking talent, when you look at their midfield with Jordan O'Connor to come back into the team, Shane Ryan should be fit again for one of the next few games. It's kind of a weird one. I actually think Shane Murphy's a better shot stopper, but Shane Ryan's better distribution. So that's kind of a tough decision that Jack O'Connor really has to make, in my opinion. Like Shane Murphy did well in the last few games, like the save he made from Chris Oak-Jones in the semi-final. He stood up tall for the penalty. I know Keelan Sexton blazed the penalty over, but Shane Murphy, in fairness to him, stood up tall. It didn't look like he was going to be beaten. And when he was required to make a few shot stops and catch the ball underneath the bar where Clare dropped the ball short, he was there to do it. So like he has proven to be a decent enough shot stopper for Kerry. Gavin White's done decent in the half back line. Brian O'Beogley as well. So look, there's still tougher tests to come from this Kerry side, but I think Jack O'Connor would love a decent test on the group stage. You'd be hopeful that a Roscommon or a Cork could give it to them from a Kerry point of view, but we'll have to wait and see, obviously. From a Clare point of view, I think their game against Down and Ennis is a huge game. Genuinely, I do think Down is a better footballing team than Clare. But if Clare are to have any chance of getting points on the board, they have to be beating a Down team that will be in Division 3 next season at home to have any chance of getting points on the board. If they don't do that, it's curtains.
Yeah, Mikey says here, Kerry and Cork have to be kept separated until Clare finish above Cork in the league. Yeah, absolutely. And I think to finish up on that point, I think that's probably the way we'd want it to happen moving forward. Looking at the only game that took place in the Senior Hurling Championship, and that was between Waterford and Limerick, and it was Waterford 22 points, Limerick 28 points. As I was saying, it was away at the weekend, so a lot of these games I've watched back with highlights and everything else. This is the game I've probably seen the least of, to be honest with you, but from the bits I did see, it seems fairly comfortable, you would say, from Limerick, and it definitely seemed like a performance where Limerick absolutely stood up and probably reminded the hurling world or the GA community or whatever you want to say that Limerick aren't going anywhere.
No, absolutely not. And they look like a team that are primed, to be honest with you. I said, the thing is, Aaron, I've said Cork will win the All-Ireland since Christmas, as you know. But this Limerick team on Saturday night, I know it was a win against Waterford. Some people might say I'll be overreacting, but what was so impressive about this Limerick performance is how comfortable they were. And as I said previously, I don't think Waterford did anything particularly wrong in this game. Limerick were just so dominant in nearly every facet of play. As I mentioned earlier, Cian Lynch getting the man of the match at the end. I think 100% shot we're seeing these first two games, four shots taken, 4 converted, which is absolutely outstanding. Aaron Gallan probably wasn't at his best last year, but he's back to his very, very best this season. I think a 94% shot accuracy, which is absolutely superb. Shane O'Brien, like Seamus Flanagan's not in the team. He's on the bench, but I don't think Seamus has at this present moment in time has a right to get back to the Limerick team with the way Shane O'Brien's playing. He's been playing absolutely out of his skin. Like when you look at these stats this season, 315 from play in 7 games in 2025. That's the most out of any Limerick player from play. He's had 12 shots against Tipperary and Waterford, 9 converted, 75% shot accuracy. He's the second top scorer at this present moment of time in the All-Ireland Championship, only behind Cathal Mannion from Galway. And we all know, myself, yourself, Aaron, the Leinster Championship, when you look at the opponents and the people you're coming up against, the Leinster Championship is much easier. But Cathal Mannion's only scored 1 more point than Shane O'Brien. Shane O'Brien scored 1-8 from play in 2 games. Like that's really, really good form for him. And this guy is still only 21 years of age. And you have to give credit to our tournament here on Off the Ball in 2023. He did say it. He said the bull, watch out for the bull. And he's certainly like Darragh O'Donovan should be a pundit, really. Like, he could spot a hurler, no doubt about it. But yeah, this Limerick, like 68% shot accuracy on Saturday evening. Like when you look at their puck outs again, I think it was in the 70% range against Tip, 71% on Saturday night as well. You could see why they're bringing Nicky Quaid back in. He might not be fully fit, but his distribution in terms of puck outs, it is so good. So good to watch. And Limerick under a breaking ball are so good. And it's going to be very difficult to stop. That they've won nearly every facet of play, obviously. Like they've won more turnovers, they won more puck outs, they had a better shooting accuracy as well. They outscored Waterford for play 22 points to 12. Like that's outstanding. And again, see, like Waterford didn't do much wrong in this one. Like it wasn't as if Waterford imploded. You know, they did perform decent enough. Maybe the 6-day turnaround was playing some sort of an element in the Waterford team on Saturday, but they did do decent enough with the likes of Stephen Bennett, Jamie Barrett, and Mark Fitzgerald in particular from wingback really impressed me. But when you look at Limerick's main players, like Adam English in midfield as well, is a guy I forgot to mention. John Kiley's put him in midfield. He noticed that he's playing so well for Doom in midfield. He gave him his chance in midfield, and now he's playing in midfield with Will O'Donoghue. I talked about Darragh O'Donovan becoming a pundit. Again, like Darragh O'Donovan, like James Flanagan, how is Darragh O'Donovan going to go back to this Limerick team? It's going to be very, very hard to see how he does. Tom Morrissey got 3 points the other night. I think John Kiley, have to give him a lot of credit in the first half. He made a ballsy decision to bring off Dermot Burns. He wasn't playing badly, obviously, but he got a yellow card. So he was saying, I'm not risking you. Not risking getting a sending off here and potentially Waterford coming back into the game. I'm getting you off the pitch. Colin Coughlin came on. And it was almost like, I think that's the biggest compliment you could give to Colin Coughlin. You didn't really realise the extent of having Dermot Burns off the pitch as it was. Colin Coughlin was absolutely superb for a young player as well, and he's definitely growing into his own. Barry Nash at wing back, absolutely superb. Cathal O'Neill came on off the bench, great team back in the Limerick team. By the way, I got a point. Aidan O'Connor continued his impressive early season form with a point. It's looking good from a Limerick point of view. Yes, there was a draw against Tipperary, but you could argue Tipperary were well up for it in Semple Stadium, and Limerick probably had them kind of early Munster Championship jitters in a way. But for this game, there was none of that in sight. They wanted to win this game. They wanted to lay down a marker, and they got the win in this one. And I think that was an indication that Limerick are back. People can't take them lightly anymore. They are a serious team. And honestly, Aaron, I think the next game for Limerick and for Cork, coincidentally, Limerick against Cork at the Gaelic Grounds on May 18th. Get out your popcorn, lads.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, will you go to that?
Unfortunately, I think there was an event that I have to go to that day. So I'll be watching it on TV. Which is, look, that's the way it is. But look, all the same, it should be an absolutely incredible watch.
Yeah, no, like even thinking about that now, like I mean, yeah, the hairs kind of stand up on the back of your neck and everything else. And Rudders was saying here, Cork Limerick final, hopefully. Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people want. And Liam says Adam English has made that midfield spot his own. Yeah, he's been absolutely brilliant, and that does seem like a kind of a big thing with Limerick this year, is that some of the, I mean, I know Shane O'Brien and Adam English, you know, they were on the panel last year. They were knocking around for a few years, but they've really kind of staked their claim in this team now. And like, to be fair to John Kiley, he's not been afraid to mix it up and change it up when he's needed to. And maybe he's gone and looked at it and thought one or two fresher faces starting from the get-go in the championship might just maybe be the difference, and might maybe be the difference kind of, you know, when it does come to All-Ireland semi-finals and finals and everything else, because both of them have been outstanding.
They have been, and you have to give them, both of them a lot of credit, to be fair. Like Shane O'Brien really burst onto the scene last year, coming off the bench in certain games. He was absolutely brilliant, even in the semi-final against Cork. Against Cork. I thought he was brilliant when he came on. I thought he added a lot of pace in the All-Ireland semi-final, and that was in front of a full crowd. So there was a question mark: what could he back it up? And that promise, and he certainly is this season. And may I add as well, in my early season predictions, I said young player of the year, Shane O'Brien. So like, I think I'm on a winner there. Not on other predictions, obviously I won't mention those, but in terms of this, I think this guy, it's a slam dunk. He's at this present moment in time, the form he's on at the moment, he's been an absolutely brilliant form, no doubt about it. And likewise with Adam English, he's done well in college level with UL, done well with his club in Doom, and he's earned that chance with Jock Kiley to get a starting berth in the Limerick team. And what a player he's proven to be. And what it does as well, I know it knocks Darrell Donovan, Seamus Flanagan, and all these players that were great, are still very good players out of the Limerick team. But what it does is strengthen the Limerick panel even more now. Like, you have Seamus Flanagan off the bench to come on. Like, if Shane O'Brien's having a poor game, you could easily put on Seamus Flanagan, and you probably wouldn't notice a difference in terms of quality. Like, this guy, like Seamus Flanagan is a brilliant player. We all know that, obviously. Like, even the players to come on the other night, Colin Coughlin, as I mentioned there, didn't even notice Dermot Burns was off the Limerick team, in all honesty. Conor O'Neill came on, Darrell Donovan came on, Aidan O'Connor came on. Like, you still have Peter Casey. He had a bit of a niggle coming into this game. Still him to come back into the team. Shane Dowling did well in the league, a goal even. Like, he even have goalkeeper is not like, even if Nicky Quaid gets another injury, like Shane Dowling could just go into goal. So can Jason Gallan. Like, the Limerick panel is stacked at this present moment in time, and they have the depth. I think in terms of the Cork and Limerick debate, I think Cork have some exciting players off the bench, but there are some question marks when you particularly look at the last 3 games and you look at the bench impact from Cork. It hasn't been as good as you'd hope it to be. Whereas you look at Limerick, it's quietly going in under the radar. And that's what makes this kind of battle between Cork and Limerick so interesting in many ways. We'll have to see in the next few weeks. I think right now, though, it hurts me to say it, but I think Limerick actually still have a better bench than Cork, and they have a better panel than Cork. So there's a lot of pressure on the Cork kind of fringe players to kind of prove their worth, their place in the panel from a Cork point of view. And there is pressure to kind of replicate the Limerick bench players and their impact on the team. So it should be interesting in the next few weeks. But a lot of people are saying Cork will win the All-Ireland, including myself, obviously. But Limerick are waiting on the long grass. That performance the other night, it was, I think Paul Flynn described it about Tyrone against Cavan. And I described this about Limerick in many ways against Waterford. It was boringly good. You probably didn't notice it was that good. But the way it was so controlled, the way they were always going to win the game, even when Waterford were playing decent enough, like Limerick were still kind of controlling that in that game, away from home as well. They're still a team to be feared.
Absolutely, yeah. I predicted them to win the All Ireland before a ball is pucked, but it goes down. I think between them and Cork, look, there's very little difference in terms of quality. I just think maybe having been there and done it before might maybe stem a little bit more, and Limerick might just be able to kind of dig it out, and Kinnerk and Kiley might just be able to find the solution to kind of stop Cork a little bit more. But yeah, like, I think between the two, there's very, very little, and maybe because of all the hype with Cork and the supporters and fans, which are brilliant. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's great to have it. Maybe it has heightened Cork up a little bit more, and people probably are sleeping on Limerick a little bit more and what they've actually done and what they've achieved. And people are saying, oh, well, Limerick lost last year, so that's the the mask has been slipped. But of course they can come back, they can get better, and they can improve. But just on Waterford, I mean, obviously, as you said, like they'll be disappointed with the loss, but in terms of performance-wise, it certainly wasn't out of it wasn't a bad game by them by any stretch of the imagination. They've obviously beaten Clare as well, so they're certainly not out of the running, it must be said. What kind of chances do you give Waterford maybe in terms of still getting out of Munster and beyond that?
Yeah, I think they need to probably improve on their shooting efficiency. Like, it was kind of like it was poor kind of shooting, erratic shooting at times. Like, they had 39 shots compared to Limerick's 41. That's even enough, to be fair. And no side got goals in this game, but Waterford converted 56% of their shots compared to Limerick's 68. 56% isn't a hard number by any matter of means. But in terms of getting to Limerick's level, you kind of need to up that a small bit. Genuinely, I don't think that's probably on Waterford's radar right now. I think Peter Quealy's probably realistic at where Waterford are at the moment. I think what would be a brilliant season for them is getting third spot. And I think if Tipperary were to beat Clare next Saturday, I think that game in Semple Stadium turns between Tipperary and Waterford, coincidentally also on May 18th, that is going to be a cracker. That will decide third place, obviously, if Tip do beat Clare this weekend. It's going to be a time with the call because both sides have made some serious strides this season. It's a question mark of who will make it to the next level. So it's going to be interesting in the next few weeks. You would imagine if Waterford were to win that game against Tip, regardless of the Clare Tip results, that might be enough to get third place. Because let's not forget, even if Clare do beat Tipperary, which they could do, they're All-Ireland champions, Clare will be on 3 points. Then Waterford will jump to 4. But then when you look at the final day, Limerick have to play Clare and the Gael girls. That's going to be a serious ask for Clare to go to Limerick and get a result there. So, and Waterford had the head-to-head over Clare as well. So a win is probably what Clare need. So I think a win against Tipperary in Semple Stadium, not only for the morale, but in terms of going forward in the championship, that will be Waterford's aim. If they can win that game, they can seriously make it out of Munster, in my opinion, even disregarding the Cork game of Rocky Keefe. But they probably have to improve on a few aspects that are playing, including their shooting, probably including their pockets as well, and things like that. Not to be over-reliant on Stephen Bennett. He scored 217 in his last 2 games, which is a very good tally, to be fair to him. But they need other players stepping up. They need the likes of Jamie Barron to do it. Patrick Sturd only got 1 point the other night. I know he's a young player, but that is probably disappointing in terms of the levels he can produce. Like, I've seen him firsthand in the Stars Ballygunner game. Like, he was Ballygunner's main man up front in terms of scores from play. Like, he can produce a performance to an exponential level. He's an absolutely brilliant player, and he has to improve on that, and no doubt about it. Desi Hutchinson, he only scored a point in this one. I think it's 2 or 3 points in 2 games, which for Desi's standards probably isn't good enough. I think he probably needs to get more on the board. I think they need to start Mikey Kiley in the next game, in all honesty. If they start him, potentially get Austin Gleeson match fit as well. Imagine a forward line with those 2 bulldozers inside there. Like, that's going to be serious, I think. So the aim will be the Tipperary game, obviously, but I think they probably need to improve on shooting, improve on puck-outs, and as well as that, throw Mikey Kiley in, potentially throw Austin Gleeson in, and they could have a decent season. It's not all doom and gloom for Waterford just yet, but maybe a small few tweaks, and they could get out of Munster.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think for Waterford, there definitely are signs of improvement. There's no doubt about that. And as you said, yeah, like that Tipperary game is going to be absolutely massive from a Waterford perspective. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens when that comes around. So yeah, cheers anyone who tuned in. Hit the like button, subscribe. Make sure to check out Matthew's podcast as well, at Gaelic Statsman on Instagram and wherever. Wherever it is on the internet. My brain is not working at this stage now. Usually when it gets to this part of the show, I'm already mentally clocked out. So yeah, cheers anyone who tuned in. We'll be back tomorrow for a preview of the Ulster and Ulster and Leinster final.
Call it off.